World at noon for this afternoon, Thursday, October 29, 2020. U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica Donald Tapia is today apologizing to Jamaicans for controversial tweets using his official Twitter handle. Chief Justice Brian Sykes says despite the challenges, Jamaica is still on track to have the best judiciary in the region in the next 3 years and among the best globally in 6 years. President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Jasford Gabriel, says he is in support of the limited resumption of face-to-face classes pilot project. In international news, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has warned of a long, hard winter ahead as she defended the reinstatement of a national lockdown. And in sports, national footballer Malik Foster has been released from hospital after being shot in the neck. He tells Nationwide Sports about his ordeal. The details after the break. U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica Donald Tapia is today apologizing to Jamaicans for controversial tweets made using his official Twitter handle that prompted a phone call between himself and Foreign Affairs Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith. The tweets were posted on Tuesday evening. Ambassador Tapia publicly apologized while speaking on Cliffviews Online this morning.
I can only tell you that to the people that was involved in the Twitter, I have to apologize to them very deeply to say this is not the way that I react. I've always said that that I'm here as your guest, and guests don't talk or act in that manner. I stand by that today, as I did the day that I arrived here.
Several Twitter users on Tuesday evening took to the social media platform responding to a nationwide news story. The story featured statements from Ambassador Tapia about the U.S. raising concerns over the prospects of using a Chinese firm to build out a 5G network in Jamaica. In responding to some of the tweets, Ambassador Tapia's Twitter handle told one user too much ganja and questioned if another user had been turned down by the U.S. Embassy. His official handle further told the Twitter user that he sounded angry. In another response, the ambassador's official handle told a user that he didn't drink and the Twitter user was a joke. According to Ambassador Tapia, he was not the one making the tweets.
Was your device hacked?
No.
Were you the one who made these tweets?
No.
What has happened to the person who has brought you into disrepute as a diplomat?
No, there's no. Yeah, I understand. That's why I take full responsibility for what took place. What has taken place with the individual. I believe that he will be leaving shortly because it was not, in fact, something that it was inappropriate.
He says the representative who was using his account will be sent back to the United States.
What do you mean by rotating him out?
Which means that he will be leaving, going back to the U.S. But he just got here just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So he would normally stay. He's married and he normally he goes home. We try to rotate him every 2 months so that he can go home and be with his family. But he will be leaving sooner than the rotation.
Donald Tapia, U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica, speaking on Cliffviews Online this morning. On Twitter 3 hours ago, the nation's Foreign Affairs Minister, Kamina Johnson-Smith, posted that she's aware of certain inappropriate tweets made from the Twitter account of the U.S. ambassador, which have been deleted. Minister Johnson-Smith says she had spoken with the ambassador and he is aware that the engagement was not appropriate for a diplomatic representative. She says Ambassador Tapia assured her that it will not recur. President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Jasford Gabriel, is in support of the limited resumption of face-to-face classes pilot project. The pilot is set to get underway on November 9 with 17 schools across 9 parishes.
No issue at all as far as the Jamaica Teachers Association is concerned. In fact, I would say we're fairly satisfied, both in terms of the timing and the process that has been used to accommodate the phase reopening of school on a face-to-face basis. The truth is, over the last month or so, we've been having constant dialogue, and the e-COVID and education task force, which comprises stakeholders of the major sectors in education, we meet every week.
And President of the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, Linville Wright, is also in support of the limited phased resumption of face-to-face classes.
My thing is that it is small scale. We're in an experimental phase. It's a health crisis. We're having issues with the children and joining. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying something.
The pilot project is set to run for 2 weeks and will determine whether or not the Ministry of Education can bring more schools on stream. The ministry has identified 73 low-risk schools that could be reopened for face-to-face classes. However, it has begun with 17 of the 73 schools with the aim of bringing more on stream if the pilot project is successful. Mr. Gabriel believes the November 9 to 20 period is enough time to properly assess the pilot program.
I think that's reasonable, given the fact that these are very, very low-risk areas. When you look at the chart, you're talking about just 17 schools out of a possible over 900 odd public schools. And so it's a very, very small number. And I'm sure there are individuals out there that maybe would have been assuming that many more schools would have been open, and even going further to think that there would have been wide-scale opening of schools.
The JTA president further noted that the process to initiate the limited resumption of face-to-face classes was properly considered by the government.
I think this is a very carefully thought-out process. Through collaboration, it is what we had desired, bringing the Ministry of Health on board and so on. And I believe that whatever the factors that need to be considered over these 2 weeks, that we'll have a good sense as to where we go from here and how many schools maybe can be on board.
Jasford Gabriel, president of the Jamaica Teachers Association. They were speaking on a Nationwide this morning with Wayne Walker and Tona Thomas. Meanwhile, Mr. Wright says he's uncertain if the methodology to resume limited face-to-face classes considered boarding schools.
Boarding schools are a peculiar group because the students will be there and are close together. So those are protocols, I think, that would have to be worked out. I know that our representative on JAP's executive, Mark Smith, had been having discussions with boarding schools. So it's just for me to get some report from him in relation to what it is that they have decided. But I have spoken to them and they have concerns, but I don't know that the methodology had spoken to boarding schools.
Linville Wright. And the JTA president also added that the limited resumption of face-to-face classes in boarding institutions will require separate deliberations.
At no point in the discussions that we have been having over the last month or so did the peculiarity of boarding schools come up for discussion, because like Linville just said, you're talking about something to do similar to a cluster there, and probably don't want to hear that kind of term right now. Mm-hmm. So that kind of discussion would have to be different, and so it didn't form part of the general deliberations that we have.
Jasford Gabriel, president of the Jamaica Teachers Association. And according to Mr. Gabriel, more than 50% of the nation's children are now accessing online classes.
With every passing week, the numbers would have been increasing. Both administrators, teachers, with the support of parents and other stakeholders, would have been making extra efforts to locate students who have been out of the loop. So the last check we had, we would have had well in excess of 50% of our students joining on the online platform. The more we improve internet access and provide devices and so on, then the more we'll be able to account for our students. So that's something that we keep seeing improvement, and we must continue to ensure that this continues.
Jasford Gabriel, president of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Now, president of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, Lenworth Kelly, is dismissing claims made by 3 mayors that no drainage system could have prevented flooding caused by the heavy rains at the weekend. On Monday's edition of Nationwide at 5, Mayor of Maypen, Winston Mirage, Mayor of Black River, Derek Sangston, Mayor of Spanish Town, Norman Scott, all agreed that no drainage system could have handled the volume of rainwater dumped on the island by the inclement weather conditions. In response, the Incorporated Master Builders Association boss says proper drainage systems can prevent flooding.
It's not. Just to be blunt, I don't know what guided the conclusion of the mayors. But what I'm saying, when you deal with drainage, you deal with your analysis, your inputs. You must have a proper drainage study done, and all the components that go into that drainage study is critical. Your rainfall data is critical, your most current rainfall data, your water resources data, what kind of flows is seen in your drainage channels. So you must know what you're going to handle before you put something in place to handle it.
Mr. Kelly says it's costly to build drainage systems to account for events that may happen as a result of climate change over an extended period of time. However, he's advising that it is more economical to plan for daily weather conditions.
So we have to work with whatever data we have in terms of rainfall, and we use that. Now, it is a matter of cost. If you want to design for the ultimate, it's a matter of cost. That's not normally recommended because it tends to be uneconomical for you to design for something that might occur once every 50 years. You just know so well fine when, if it's the 50th year or whenever the occurrence comes, fix up and move on, right? Because economically we cannot afford that.
Lenworth Kelly, president of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica. Overseas now, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has warned of a long, hard winter ahead as she defended the reinstatement of a national lockdown. Mrs. Merkel was heckled by right-wing MPs as she outlined the new measures in Parliament. German health officials said today that another 89 people had died in the past 24 hours, with a record 16,774 infections. Germany's new measures will come into force on Monday are not as far-reaching as in France. End the practice of detaining mentally challenged inmates indefinitely. That's among the major recommendations of the Court Administrative Division. The division, on the advice of Chief Justice Brian Sykes, has established a committee to assess the issue of lengthy detention of mentally challenged inmates deemed unfit to stand trial. The committee was established following the controversial story of a man, Noel Chambers, who died in prison after serving years without being allowed to stand trial. The committee is chaired by Supreme Court Judge Justice Georgiana Fraser.
There is a clear and pressing need for statutory revocation of indefinite detention, meaning we need to do away with indefinite detention. The mentally disordered defendants presently that are housed in correctional facilities, they need to be removed to a designated psychiatric facility.
She says the report has found that several policies are breached when dealing with mentally challenged persons accused of committing crimes. She says that includes the police interviewing the accused without an attorney present, lengthy delays in having them appear in court after they are charged, and the inability most times to have them undergo psychiatric evaluation. Justice Fraser says the committee is also recommending that the Health Ministry finds a suitable place to house persons deemed unfit to plea who are before the courts.
The timely submission of psychiatric review reports, the failure to implement and or maintain review registers, and this is a responsibility that falls on the court administrators and registrar of the Supreme Court. Difficulty locating family members are some of the reasons why persons who are mentally disordered end up spending these long periods of time in custody.
Justice Georgiana Fraser, Supreme Court judge, addressing the media today during a forum called A Conversation with the Chief Justice. Chief Justice Brian Sykes says despite the challenges as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, Jamaica is still on track to have the best judiciary in the region in the next 3 years and among the best globally in 6 years. He was addressing media this morning during a function called A Conversation with the Chief Justice. The forum is the first of its kind in Jamaica's history.
Because in the parish courts, we really have an antiquated system of producing the transcript. And what has happened is that the number of judges in those courts has increased significantly, but the support necessary for the courts to be working at peak efficiency has not increased as well, particularly in terms of the support now to produce transcripts from those courts, because the President would indicate that transcripts from the parish court can at times take too long because it is still writing, and then the typist has to sit there and decipher the handwriting. That is one significant area that we really have to examine to move it forward. But I think, yes, we are still on course.
He says while there are some lingering cases, most of the courts are up to date with matters. The Chief Justice says the courts are also moving to develop a better way of producing court transcripts.
And let us look at the delivery of judgments. Just one of them, because I spoke last year about getting rid of all the outstanding judgments by December 31. So we haven't yet done that, but we are on course to be there by next year. And some of that can be attributed to COVID, but some of it to other internal inefficiencies within the court, which we are addressing. And also with the continued training of judges in terms of the delivery of oral judgment, because one of the things that we were trying to do in the Supreme Court was actually to produce a written judgment for just about every civil case that there was.
Chief Justice Brian Sykes addressing the media this morning during a forum called A Conversation with the Chief Justice.